welcome to Case Study Corner, Eirmersive's new video series where we spotlight one real-world immersive technology project in about 15 minutes, focusing on what was built, why it mattered, and what organisations can learn if they're exploring XR. I'm Camille Donegan, CEO and co-founder of Eirmersive, the voice of the Irish immersive sector. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Aaron J from Emagine. We're diving into Imagine's work with Irish Cement on Rock to Reality, a VR-powered factory tour designed to engage school leavers and apprentices through immersive storytelling, cinematic capture, and interactive technology. Aaron, thanks for joining us. Let's jump straight in. Can you please introduce yourself, your role at Emagine, and the team that you lead?
Yep, thanks, Camille. I'm Aaron J, CEO of Emagine. We've been delivering creative technical projects for the last 25 years, and we have a really eclectic team of individuals that all kind of overlap in our skill sets, but we all have our own expertise as well. And we deliver and design technical immersive experience for clients all over Europe and Ireland in a variety of industries. So that's us.
Brilliant, thanks. And in one sentence, what does Emagine do for its clients?
I suppose we take creative briefs and apply the technology to it where it can be used in a useful way. And we'll talk about that more with Irish Cement, but yeah, that's basically the gist, is taking a creative brief and turning it into something that's technical that will solve a problem for the client.
Okay, perfect, which leads me straight on to the next question, which is like, what kind of problems do you specialize in solving with XR technologies, and what type of organizations do you work with? Like, do you have a sectoral focus?
We worked a long time in the tourism industry, and a lot of that was pre-COVID. Once tourism stopped with COVID, we had to diversify and had to look at our tools that we had and said, well, look, everyone needs some training. It's a massive worldwide shutdown, so we diverted our energy into virtual learning and sort of on-site tours where people couldn't visit as well. But like that, when things came back after COVID, like our big speciality is in tourism. But I suppose we engage with organizations that it's anyone that has a communication problem. Like they want to tell a story, but it suits the medium that we're experts in. So say, for instance, museums, visitor attractions, enterprises, businesses that have a story to tell, but the XR part of what we offer tells that story in the best way.
Yeah. I guess where the spatial communication or 3D aspect adds value. Makes sense. And so for the potential tech adopters out there, what is your discovery process? How do you make sure that a company is ready perhaps to adopt XR, to look at XR for a solution? Are there any good first project characteristics per se?
Yeah, again, like we're looking for businesses that have a perpetual communications challenge. So for instance, with Irish Cement, and I'm going to quote them, they said they're the largest industry in Ireland that no one knows about. And that was their problem, is being discovered, because you can't walk around this massive quarry and stand next to these gigantic dump trucks, and they needed to be able to explain to people that this is what they do. I mean, their forge is 1400 degrees Fahrenheit. You can't get within 20 feet of the thing, but in VR you can. So a good first project for us is to figure out where you can't go normally, anything that's dangerous, anything that uses materials you don't want to waste, or anything that can be shown to scale. That's the great thing about the XR, is that it's to human scale, and we see that difference, and we all understand that. So that's where we would look for something like that. Amazing.
And tell me, how did the relationship with Irish Cement come about? How did you get connected?
Well, there's a guy, Fergus Foyle, who did a lot of drone work, Geospace Ireland, he did a lot of drone work for Irish Cement, and they approached him, and he didn't do that kind of immersive work. So they went and they looked at a lot of companies, and one of the things they told us, because we always ask why people choose us when they do choose us, and they said that the quality of what we presented stood out to them. They engaged with us in the match fit, I suppose, but I suppose quality is really important to them. They're part of the CRH group, which is, Roadstone Holdings, and the watchwords of their culture is quality, and they needed to have that in their own their own ethos in order to pick us. So that's how it came about, really. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And what was their initial goal for this XOR project? Was it recruitment, engagement, training?
Um, it's funny that it was originally for kind of a recruitment, but apprenticeships, really, to attract apprenticeships. But I suppose even rolling back at the very beginning, we did this really revealing persona workshop with them, which we do try to do with everyone. And we tend to ask really specific questions about who you're talking to and drill right down to the who's going to actually see this. And we come up with a persona. So in this case, we came up with, I think it was Anya was our character. And we actually go through the whole process of making an AI, render of them, right down to what they do for part-time jobs. What's their hair color? What kind of car they drive? Are they GAA fans? And keeping these people in mind, that's who we have to talk to. And it ended up being a focus, I suppose, on apprentices and school leavers, that people that wanted a trade that weren't into college and third level necessarily. So the recruitment and engagement were the focus, but not so much training, because I suppose that comes later once they have the people in the door. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And before Irish Cement knew about the possibilities, or you brought them on that roadmap of that persona workshop, sounds like such an important part of the process, right?
Mhm.
How else might they have tried to attract apprentices? Like, what gap did this project aim to close?
Yeah, I suppose the goal for them was to engage, more people in a more interesting way. And they'd go to schools and they'd pull out a PowerPoint presentation and they'd lose people within 2 minutes. And they're competing with other companies at trade shows and they have printed booklets and they just weren't holding attention. I mean, thinking about it, this age group as a group of digital natives, PowerPoint and brochures just don't do it for them. It's got to be interactive because their whole world is interactive right now. So.
Yeah. And there's always a queue at a conference, especially when it's younger folks, if there's a headset. So it's
Yeah,
definitely
and
a
all the
massive
sweets
pull.
won't solve it.
Yeah. And then, of course, what's in the headset is super important, which brings me nicely to the image behind you. Talk us
Hmm.
through what that image is and what part, say, that imagery took in the project.
Yeah, this is one of our favorite still shots from the project. Like they have this giant dome, they call it the inside of the dome, where this giant crawler machine. And I know that's not the real name, and the client's going to kill me for not knowing that real name, but there's this giant crawler machine that grades out the different sized rocks that get brought from the quarry and get put onto the kiln via a whole series of elevators and conveyor belts. But the thing that gets me about this image and why I like it so much is the size of you can see the little people in the space. And that's what was really surprising for us on site. We did a lot of on-site photography and videography, and like the scale is really surprising when you walk in and you see this massive machine, but it doesn't quite register until you see a little person walking in there. So for us, that works really well. It represents what you don't see. You're not allowed in this place normally. You can't normally go. And from an XR point of view, if you see this in stereoscopic imagery, you can see how tiny the people are walking around in there. Um, we all decided as well, it looks like a place you'd land a TIE fighter in Star Wars. So we like that as well.
Nice. Yeah, it really illustrates that scale aspect, so to be
Massive.
in that huge dome where people can't normally go. Amazing.
Mm.
Talk to us a little bit about, the tech side of the solution, maybe the design and then the tech process and tools. Like what did you actually build? What were the components of the experience and how did they fit together?
Yeah. Um, we used to be an agency, did a lot of creative agency work, so we're steeped in kind of like a lot of more what we would call traditional technology. So we did a lot of drone work, the stills. We did videos. We did 360. We had FPV drones working. So we took stills and videos with more traditional cameras, but we also used 360 cameras, and then all of that was really combined, with what was their process. They had a process of where rock comes from the ground and turns into cement. So we had to follow that process. And I mean, in some ways, it's a glorified 360 tour, but there's some real time stuff thrown in for good measure. And we used Unity and built it, put it all together that way. So
Amazing. And is there interactive gamified components to it, or are you on Rails, or how does that work?
Well, it's kind of a choose your own adventure type thing for the apprentices. I mean, I suppose that the more traditional image and video editing and stitching software that we use, we bring it all together with sound design and we use Unity, but there were certain elements that needed to be made more gamified. And I suppose you can drive a robot arm. You can go into the kiln. We did a CGI representation of what the interior of the kiln looks like because literally 1400 degrees Fahrenheit. You can't do that normally. So that was kind of some of the little gamified elements that we put into it. But it is basically a choose your own adventure for the apprentice that gets to see what they want to see.
Nice. I very much look forward to trying it and choosing my own adventure. And
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about the key stakeholders that you were working with, like getting buy-in from different kind of departments or different stakeholders, and some of the maybe the timelines and key milestones, so folks can get an idea of the pathway that you go on a journey with your client.
Yeah, I think this one thing that we ran into in the past that was possibly a stumbling block for attracting people is that you really need somebody who's passionate about what they're doing. And I mean, we've had people that have approached us before that just need to spend the budget, and we try to avoid that kind of a project because the people that are the champions of this project need to be engaged, and when they are engaged, it makes a really good project. So I suppose the people most affected by this experience are the people running the show, and they're the ones that are going to be showing it to the apprentices. So I mean, they're the people that we have to get buy-in for. Um, Recruitment personnel, say for instance in Irish Cement's case, they need to deliver this in a way that was easy for them to use, and they could be proud of it for their audience because obviously, walking into a school leavers classroom and trying to impress 40 kids that are all 16 and 17 years old is not easy anyways. And when you are trying to impress them, you need to be confident about what you're doing. So we also had to engage with the people that we photographed and interviewed. Like we did interview quite a few of the apprentices on site. There was engineers on site. There were safety people who allowed us to go into the giant elevator in the dome. We were buzzing the dump trucks, and of course they needed to all have that cleared. We had drones flying to their warehouse at 90 miles an hour. So all of that takes a bit of trust when we're doing the actual production part. But I suppose key milestones for us were really deciding the narrative, and that's really where we had to rely on Irish Cement to tell us from that process of coming out of the ground, how does it go through each step to get to the end. We didn't know that, and we had to just follow their guidance on how we could build it out that way. So
Mhm.
telling that story.
Yeah. And can you talk to us about perhaps one challenge that you hit and how you solved it?
Hmm. Well, I suppose the main thing that we did is we went into their control center first, and this is where this guy has um, 30 screens in front of him, and he can see all aspects of everything in the factory in real time, and he can manipulate. So the mix needs to change, or it's getting too hot, or there's a variety of different conditions he needs to manipulate. But right behind him was this giant big robot arm that was buzzing around picking up samples and doing stuff, and we were instantly saying, oh, it'd be cool to manipulate that robot, can we drive it? And the problem was is that that sampling, processing, monitoring of all the materials coming in out of the factory, it's completely computer controlled because it's so precise and exact. And we were like, well, we can't drive it. And they said, no one can drive it. It does what it does. And so I suppose we had to gamify that. So we ended up getting a model of the robot arm and made a simulated game inside the experience. So I suppose it's not the actual robot arm that you're using and you're driving in a factory, obviously, but to be able to build that code, and it took a lot of custom code to kind of make it so that it could be used in real time on a portable headset at a trade show or a school fair. And it's one of these things that also had to be cast to a screen. So, if somebody sees that you're driving a robot all day, everyone else wants to drive the robot. So that was the challenge, and we did it with a lot of custom code.
Yeah. Wow. And even casting, of course, uses a lot of
Yeah,
processing power on the headset, so you've got
it
those
does.
challenges as well. And tell us a bit about the dissemination of the work. Like, where has this viewer experience been shown, and what kind of engagement have you seen with it so far?
Well, they use it in careers fairs and schools and trade shows. They seem to be constantly on the road. and with the public since it was launched, and that's a really good sign for us. And they're really keen to promote it, which is a great sign for us because obviously we promote it, they promote it, everybody wins. But our cement themselves, they came back to us. They've reported a whole lot more engagement from the school leavers, which was the goal of the whole thing. And one of the women we worked with, she got a request to take it back to her all girls school that she went to, and that's a place not traditionally quote unquote an audience for mechanical and electrical and chemical engineers, and but that they welcome that audience of an all-girls school because obviously they're trying to diversify the workforce, and that was something that she wasn't expecting, and she said to us she was really delighted to have that surprise invite and that engagement. So it's really cool.
Yeah, and that's, in terms of kind of quantitative feedback, um that's obviously going down very well and
Mm,
adding value to this process and a real differentiator in the market. Do
yeah.
you have any like hard metrics, I guess, any qualitative feedback from the piece?
Well, I suppose they've been to more careers fairs since and talked to more graduates, which is a win. And they're now they feel like they're competing with others on the stands at the trade shows and at these fairs and attracting more people. But I suppose originally it's a funny one. Originally the client called it, they had an internal name of the project called Project Wow, which as designers makes us recoil. Like I hate hearing that it needs to have wow because it's so vague. It does nothing to help us with the briefing process. But now they're actually, once it's done and once it's been put out into the real world, they're coming back to us and they said that the impression is that people have is this wow moment. Like they take it off and just go, wow, that was cool. That's coming from within the factory, that's coming from within the people using it. So whatever wow means, and we hate to hear that as a brief, it tends to be a good outcome. And it's not exactly qualitative metrics that you can measure, but it is, an unknown kind of a factor that they figure into how successful it is.
Yeah, that yeah, it's a strong engagement response for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Speaking of wow, were there any surprises or gotchas, maybe as regards, say, user behavior in the VR experience or stakeholder feedback or discoveries? And maybe tying in with that, like, is there anything you would do differently next time,
Mm.
based on learnings from this experience with Irish Cement?
Yeah, I suppose that the user persona workshop was surprising to us. I mean, we've done loads of those over the years at all levels of the organization, but of any organization, we try to do that just to get a good feel and a good baseline about what we're going to do. But I suppose with this one, we learned that everyone at all levels, like they had, people high up in the organization and they had people on the floor, they were all really engaged, and it was never a sense of somebody saying, oh, my boss has told me I had to be here, I'm not going to answer any questions. Everyone had very interesting opinions, they had very valid observations because they took it from their point of view, and it's not something you really find all the time. I think it's a credit to Irish Cement and CRH that they fostered that kind of working environment that everyone feels like they can contribute. um, and like we had our provocative questions, but not everyone in those workshops engages. Like I said, they just have to be there. So this time it felt different. It made it, I suppose in the end, when everyone's like that, it makes it more of a complete project, getting everyone on board, and everyone seems to be behind it. So I suppose that was really surprising. One thing we do differently is to have everyone working on the project from our end, all the time. So we brought a whole load of people out on site visits and to photograph. But we had a couple of key people that, say, for doing video editing and sound editing, that weren't there on the day. And actually, from our own point of view, we've noted it ourselves internally. Like, if you have everyone in the project there on the day doing the tours and getting the understanding, then they get a better sense of the ethos, and there's not as much frustration by putting things out of order or calling it concrete when it's never called concrete, it's called cement. But they wouldn't have known that unless they were there on the day. So I suppose that's what we would do on our end, is make sure that everyone that is involved in producing it is actually learning with the client at the same time.
Yeah, there's just so many nuances, like you're talking about the culture there as well as the technical workflow of the process of making cement. So tell us, what's the roadmap? What's the next steps for Rock to Reality? Where can people learn more about it? And most importantly, how do they follow you and Imagine's world-class project?
The next steps really is we're re-engaging with the clients. We were even talking to them this week, and they they gave us the best brief possible. They basically want to keep it fresh for their students year on year. So they gave us a think it out phase, which we call, and it's a fun process. Basically, they came to us and said, look, we want a bunch of wild ideas. We want 6 or 7 things to do over the next 6 or 8 months. Just come up with some load of mad ideas, give us a budget for each one, and we'll pick and choose what we think we want to do. So it's really a cool brief because we can just let our imagination go. It's looking like we might be doing some kind of like welding exercises or setting up electrical circuits. And one of the ideas is maybe throwing haptics in there. If you don't ground the circuit when you put it together, you get a bit of a simulated shock for a surprise effect, you know. But who knows? Like we were actually even talking about doing a big giant dump truck simulator, which would be great fun. So we'll just have to see. But that really, I mean, they have a lot about this whole process on their website, and of course we have enough about it on our website too. But that's really how they should get in touch. And Irish Cement would love to tell them all about cement. It's really interesting, in fact.
Great. And just quickly, your website URL, Aaron, so people can follow the progress.
Yeah, so it's www.emagine.ie.
Yeah.
And all of our work is on there, all kinds of different projects.
Amazing. And any final words of wisdom for organizations out there that might be exploring XOR or interested in the potential and the value add? Can you advise one thing to prioritize, one pitfall to avoid, and one quick win?
Okay, so from a priorities, I'd say don't be confused in who the audience is at the start. Like you got to be very clear about the audience, and you're trying not to be everything for everyone. So we tend to take a really targeted approach. So, like I said, building up the persona of an actual made-up person with a name and a face, and it helps everyone know who they're talking to. And even we found later in discussions and meetings that say, okay, well, would Anya like this or not? You know. And it became another person in the room that we could talk about. And I'd keep that as a priority for sure. It doesn't matter about the tech. As long as you get the message right and who the audience is, you're fine, you know. From a pitfall point of view, I suppose I'd avoid going half-heartedly into this type of a project. Don't just start something because you need to spend a budget. So we tend to ask a lot of the client. There's a lot of homework the client needs to do. Obviously, we don't know their industry. We don't know their business. We don't know their profession. We're experts in what we do, but we're certainly not experts in making concrete. Concrete, I said it, cement. So I suppose if you don't want to put that kind of effort into it, it just won't work. You know, you need a champion. Someone has to be first. Someone has to stick the head above the parapet and put the energy into it. So, and then I suppose one quick win is to get ideas from the shop floor, and I use from the shop floor because that's what the client said to us. And this came directly from Irish Cement saying, getting the enthusiasm from the people who have the ideas and who are there at the coalface, so to speak, is a quick win for everyone. Like, why wouldn't you take their advice on board? So that's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Aaron. It's been a brilliant walkthrough on Rock to Reality, Imagine's project with Irish Cement. We talked about identifying the challenge through to the solution design and delivery and the real world outcomes for the project. It's exactly the kind of adoption story we love highlighting at Eirmersive. It's practical, it's measurable, it's focused on helping organizations reach new audiences and deliver solutions with the value add of immersive technologies. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow Eirmersive for future case study corner sessions where we continue to spotlight how XOR is being applied across industry, training, culture, and manufacturing. Aaron, thanks again so much for your time today and for joining us.
Thanks again. Delighted to do it.